Hello friends, I'm glad you're back. It's time for us to read another 2 chapters in My Father's Dragon. But before we begin, I want to let you know that some of you have been listening to the story and replying back to me on Seesaw as to what you think about the book. Connor has been listening, and he wanted to say that if he was going on a big trip to find a wild island, he would bring a lot of different things. He had 18 things on his list. Some of the things I thought were really interesting were this. He would also bring with him survival gear, fishing stuff, a compass, matches, which is a good idea just in case you need to make a fire to stay warm, and a survival hand guide. His brother Ryan has been watching, and he had a big long list too of things he'd bring with him on a trip. Some of the things he thought would be important would be a flashlight, and I have to say I agree with him. He would also bring a tent and rope and fresh water, which is a good idea because you can't always find fresh water when you go places. Also, Connor and Ryan drew pictures of what they think the dragon looks like. I was so excited to see these. Aren't they wonderful? They were really listening when the dragon was described in the beginning of this book. They have all the details that were mentioned. My Father's Dragon, words to know. Dense, tightly packed. Scarce, hard to find. Water is scarce in the desert. Brook, a small stream. The boy went wading in the brook. Weep, to cry. The man was weeping when his cat died. And now it's time for chapter 5. My father meets some tigers. The river was very wide and muddy, and the jungle was very gloomy and dense. The trees grew close to each other, and what room there was between them was taken up by great high ferns that had sticky leaves. My father hated to leave the beach, but he decided to start along the river bank, where at least the jungle wasn't quite so thick. He ate 3 tangerines, making sure to keep all the peels this time, and he put on his rubber boots. My father tried to follow the river bank, but it was very swampy, and as he went farther, the swamp became even deeper. When it was almost as deep as the boot tops, he got stuck in the ooey, mucky mud. My father tugged and nearly pulled his boots right off, but at last he managed to wade into a drier place. Here, the jungle was so thick that he could hardly see where the river was. He unpacked his compass and figured out the direction he should walk in order to stay near the river. But he didn't know that the river made a very sharp curve away from him just a little way beyond. And so, as he walked straight ahead, he was getting actually farther and farther away from the river. It was very hard to walk in the jungle. The sticky leaves of ferns caught at my father's hair, and he kept tripping over roots and rotten logs. Sometimes the trees were clumped so closely together that he couldn't even squeeze between them, and he had to walk a very long way around. He had begun to hear whispering noises, but he couldn't see any animals anywhere. The deeper into the jungle that he went, the surer he was that something was following him. And then he thought he heard whispering noises on both sides of him, as well as behind. He tried to run, but then he tripped over more roots, and the noises got nearer and nearer. Once or twice he thought he heard something laughing at him. At last he came out into a clearing and ran right out into the middle of it so that he could see anything that might be trying to attack him. Was he surprised when he looked and saw 14 green eyes coming out of the jungle all around the clearing. And then the green eyes turned into 7 tigers. The tigers walked around him in a big circle, looking hungrier all the time. And then they sat down and began to talk.
I suppose you thought we didn't know you were trespassing in our jungle.
Then the next tiger spoke. I suppose you're going to say you didn't know it was our jungle.
Did you know that not one explorer has ever left this island alive? Said the third tiger.
My father thought of the cat, and he knew that this was not true. But of course he had too much sense to say so. One does not go against a hungry tiger. The tigers went on talking in turn.
"You're our first little boy, you know. I'm curious to know if you're especially tender." "Maybe you think we have regular meal times, but we don't. We just eat whenever we're feeling hungry," said the fifth tiger. "And we're very hungry right now. In fact, I can hardly wait," said the sixth tiger. "I can't wait," said the seventh tiger. And then all of the tigers said together in a loud roar, "Let's begin right now!" And then they moved in closer to the boy. My father looked at those 7 hungry tigers, and then he had an idea. He quickly opened his knapsack and he took out chewing gum. The cat had told him that the tigers were especially fond of chewing gum, which was very scarce on this island. So he threw them each a piece, but they only growled at him. "As fond as we are of chewing gum, we're sure that we would like you even better." And they moved so close that he could feel them breathing on his face. "Oh, no, this is very special chewing gum," said my father. "If you keep on chewing it long enough, it will turn green. And then if you plant it, it will grow more chewing gum. And the sooner you start chewing, the sooner you'll have more chewing gum." The tigers said, "Why, you don't say! Isn't that fine?" As each one wanted to be the first to plant their chewing gum, they all unwrapped their pieces and they began chewing as hard as they could. Every once in a while, one tiger would look into another one's mouth and say, "Nope, not done yet." Until finally they were all so busy looking into each other's mouths to make sure that no one was getting ahead of the others that they forgot all about my father. Chapter 6. My father meets a rhinoceros. My father soon found a trail leading away from the clearing. All sorts of animals might be using it too, but he decided to follow the trail no matter what he met because he might be led to the dragon. He kept a sharp lookout in front of him and behind him, and he went on. Just as he was feeling quite safe, he came around a curve right behind the 2 wild boars. One of them was saying to the other, "Did you know that the tortoises thought they saw Monkey carrying a sick grandmother to the doctor's last night? But Monkey's grandmother died a week ago, so they must have seen something else. I wonder what it was." "I told you that there was an invasion afoot," said the other boar, "and I intend to find out what it is. I simply cannot stand invasions." "Me neither," said a tiny little voice. "I mean, me neither." My father knew that the mouse was there too. "Well," said the first boar, "you search the trail up this way to the dragon. I'll go back down the other way to the big clearing, and we'll send Mouse to watch the ocean rocks, just in case the invasion should decide to go away before we can find it." My father hid behind a mahogany tree just in time, and the first boar walked right past him. My father waited for the other boar to get a head start on him. But he didn't want to wait very long because he knew that when the first boar saw all those tigers chewing gum in the clearing, he'd be very suspicious. Soon the trail crossed a little brook, and my father, who by this time was very thirsty, stopped to get a drink of water. He still had on his rubber boots, so he waded out into the little pool of water and was stooping down when something quite sharp picked him up by the seat of the pants and shook him very hard.
"Don't you know this is my private weeping pool?"
said a deep, angry voice. My father could not see who was talking because he was hanging up in the air right over the pool, but he said, "Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't know that everybody had a private weeping pool."
"Everybody doesn't,"
said the angry voice.
"but I do because I have such a big thing to weep about, and I drowned everybody I find using my weeping pool."
And with that, the animal tossed my father up and down over the water. "What is it that you weep about so much?" asked my father, trying to get his breath, and he thought over all the things that he had in his pack.
"Oh, I have many things to weep about, but the biggest thing is the color of my tusk."
My father squirmed every which way, trying to see this tusk, but it was through the seat of his pants, where he couldn't possibly see it.
"When I was a young rhinoceros, my tusk was pearly white,"
said the animal. And that is when my father found out that he was hanging by the seat of his pants for my rhinoceros tusk.
"But it has turned a nasty yellow-gray in my old age. and I find it very ugly. You see, everything else about me is ugly, but when I had a beautiful tusk, I didn't worry so much about the rest. Now that my tusk is ugly too, I cannot sleep at night, just thinking about how completely ugly I am, and I weep all the time. Why should I be telling you these things? I caught you using my pool, and now I'm going to drown you.
Oh, wait a minute, Rhinoceros, said my father. I have some things that will make your tusk white and beautiful again. Just let me down, and I will give them to you. The rhinoceros said,
You do? I can hardly believe it. Why, I'm so excited.
He put my father down and danced around in a circle while my father got out the tube of toothpaste and the toothbrush. Now, said my father, just move your tusk a little nearer, please, and I'll show you how to begin. My father wet the brush in the pool and squeezed on a dab of toothpaste and scrubbed very hard in one tiny spot. Then he told the rhinoceros to wash it off, and when the pool was calm again, he told the rhinoceros to look in the water and see how white that little spot was. It was hard to see in the dim light of the jungle, but sure enough, the spot shone pearly white, just like new. The rhinoceros was so pleased that he grabbed the toothbrush and began scrubbing violently, forgetting all about my father. Just then my father heard footsteps, and he jumped behind the rhinoceros. It was the boar coming back from the big clearing where the tigers were still chewing gum. The boar looked at the rhinoceros, and at the toothbrush, and at the tube of toothpaste, and then he scratched his ear on a tree.
Tell me, Rhinoceros,
He said,
where did you get that fine tube of toothpaste and that toothbrush? Too busy,
said the rhinoceros, and he went on brushing as hard as he could. The boar sniffed angrily and trotted down the trail toward the dragon, muttering to himself,
Very suspicious. Tiger's too busy chewing gum. Rhinoceros too busy brushing his tusk. Must get a hold of that evasion. Nope, don't like this one bit. Not one bit. It's upsetting everybody terribly. Wonder what it's doing here anyway.
The next chapter is chapter 7. And so I think this was a pretty fun chapter. We still haven't met the dragon yet, but we have met another interesting character, a rhinoceros. I really am loving how all those crazy things that the boy put in his backpack are coming in very handy for him. I had not thought that he would use his toothbrush and his toothpaste to save him from an angry rhinoceros. Our next chapter is called My Father Meets a Lion. I wonder what will happen when he meets the lion. Do you think he'll get eaten up? Or do you think he'll find a clever way of saving himself from the lion? Do you think he'll ever find that dragon? Thank you for listening, and I really can't wait to hear what you think. Have a good evening. Bye.